On the morning of January 2, 1964, a 10-year-old girl looked at the man sitting in her father's living room and quietly left the house. She walked to the community bulletin board at the end of the street. She had been there before. She knew exactly what she was looking for. The man inside had 2 moles on his face. The same 2 moles as the man in the photograph. The same height. The same name, nearly identical to that of a boy in her class at school, which was why she had remembered it in the first place. She walked back inside. "He is a messenger of evil," she said. Her father told her to be quiet. They had a guest. The man in the living room had killed 5 people in 78 days. In 1963, he was released from prison. He was 37 years old. He returned to Yukuhashi, took a job as a delivery driver, and began watching. Akira Nishiguchi had spent his entire adult life learning how to be trusted. He had been born on the Gotō Islands, a remote Catholic community off the Nagasaki coast, and meant for the priesthood. He did not finish. What followed was 2 decades of fraud, impersonating American servicemen, selling cars that did not exist, extracting money from people who trusted him. He was good at being trusted. Through his delivery work, Nishiguchi learned that a man named Ikuo Murata regularly transported large sums of cash for a government tobacco corporation. He spent several days gaining Murata's trust. Then he offered to help with a delivery. On October 18, 1963, Nishiguchi directed Murata and his driver, Goro Mori, to an isolated mountain road in Fukuoka Prefecture. At Chuai Mountain Pass, he lured Murata from the car and beat him to death with a hammer. He returned to the car and stabbed Mori. He took a money bag containing 260,000 yen and left both men where they fell. That same night, the same night he had killed 2 men, he sat down and wrote a letter to the Yukuhashi police. In it, he expressed remorse. He announced his intention to commit suicide. He then boarded a ferry bound for Tokyo and threw his personal belongings, including a signed will, into the Seto Inland Sea. He was not dead. He was on his way to Shizuoka. He would kill 3 more people before anyone caught him. He arrived in Shizuoka under a new name. Masaoka, a professor from Kyoto University. He rented a room from a young woman named Yuki Fujimi and stayed for several days. When his money ran out, spent on gambling and petty fraud, he returned. He had the option of simply disappearing. He didn't. On November 14, he strangled Yuki Fujimi and her mother, Haru, with a rope. He cleared the apartment of cash and valuables and left. The bodies were found 8 days later, on November 22. By that point, he was already somewhere else. Already someone else. He was in Tokyo by December. The man's name was Umamatsu Kamiyoshi. He was 81 years old, a retired lawyer, a bar association member. He received Nishiguchi the way he would have received any colleague, with tea and formality, at his home in Toshima Ward. Nishiguchi strangled him with his own necktie. He stuffed the body in a closet. He ransacked the apartment for cash and valuables and left. 5 victims. 78 days. Fukuoka, Shizuoka, Tokyo. He had never stayed in the same city twice. When the Shizuoka murders were discovered in late November, police linked the evidence to Nishiguchi and understood what they were dealing with. 5,000 wanted posters were printed and distributed across Japan. His photograph, face forward, 2 moles clearly visible, went up on bulletin boards in train stations, temples, schools, and community centers from Fukuoka to Hokkaido. Investigators traveled to Beppu to speak with his family. His parents and siblings wrote letters urging him to surrender. Those letters were printed in national newspapers. He read them. He kept moving. He continued to defraud people as he traveled, presenting himself as a doctor in one city, a lawyer in another, a professor in a third. He was charming. He was convincing. He had spent his entire adult life learning how to be believed. Then, on January 2, 1964, he made a decision that no investigator had anticipated. On January 2, 1964, he arrived at Ryugan-ji Temple in Kumamoto. He introduced himself as Kawamura, a lawyer. He said he had heard of the temple's Buddhist priest, Tairyu Furukawa, and wished to support Furukawa's campaign for the release of a man on death row. Furukawa had, in fact, met Nishiguchi once before, years earlier, briefly, in prison. He did not recognize him. He welcomed him inside and introduced him to his family. His intention, he would later confess, was to secure campaign funds from the priest and then kill everyone in the house. Furukawa's younger daughter was 10 years old. Her name was Ruriko. She had noticed the wanted poster on the community bulletin board near their home sometime before. She had memorized Nishiguchi's face for a mundane reason: his surname was nearly identical to that of one of her classmates. The similarity had made it stick. When she saw the visitor standing in her father's living room, she noted two things: his height matched the description on the poster, and on his face were two distinct moles, exactly as in the photograph. She left the house without a word. She walked to the bulletin board. She confirmed what she already knew. When she returned and told her parents, her father told her to be quiet. They had a guest. He was a messenger of happiness, he said. No, Ruriko said. He is a messenger of evil. Furukawa looked at his daughter. He excused himself. He walked to the bulletin board. He came back. He said nothing to the man in his living room. He installed a lock on one section of the house, separated his family, and sent his wife and eldest daughter to the police station on foot. He stayed in the house with Ruriko. Furukawa sat back down at the table. He kept the conversation moving. He asked about the campaign. He poured tea. He smiled when it seemed appropriate to smile. The man across from him had killed 5 people. He had arrived at this house intending to kill everyone in it. Outside, his wife was walking to the police station. Furukawa had no way of knowing how long it would take. He had no way of knowing whether Nishiguchi suspected anything. He had no way of knowing whether Ruriko, who was 10 years old, would stay calm. By 4 o'clock in the morning on January 3rd, police had quietly surrounded Ryugan-ji Temple. When Nishiguchi moved toward the door to leave, he walked into a perimeter of officers. He did not resist. He was placed in a vehicle without incident. Under questioning the following day, he confessed to everything. Investigators asked him the question that had stayed with them through the entire investigation: why kill? He had spent 20 years as a successful fraudster. He was skilled at it. Why cross that line? His answer was 3 words. Fraud is troublesome, he said. It is easier to kill. The trial lasted nearly a year. On December 23, 1964, Akira Nishiguchi was sentenced to death. An appeal based on insanity was rejected. During the years he spent on death row, Furukawa, the priest he had planned to kill, visited him regularly. He brought religious texts. He sat with him. Nishiguchi wrote letters to his children, urging them to live honestly. On December 11, 1970, he was executed by hanging at Fukuoka Detention House. He was 44 years old. His final words, "Please cast my ashes in Beppu Bay. Amen." Seiki Menda, the death row prisoner whose release Nishiguchi had claimed to be advocating when he arrived at the temple, was present in the facility that morning. The Furukawa family received national commendation in a televised ceremony. Taiyu Furukawa later paid tuition for Nishiguchi's children out of his own pocket. Over the years, Ruriko and Nishiguchi's eldest son became friends. The case changed Japanese law. The National Police Agency restructured to allow for coordination across prefectural boundaries, the Metropolitan Designated Case System, which still exists today. Before Nishiguchi, a fugitive crossing prefectural lines created jurisdictional complications. After him, Japan had a framework to address it. The novelist Ryuzo Saki based his 1975 novel Vengeance is Mine on the case. It won the Naoki Prize. Shoei Imamura turned it into a film for years later. It won Best Picture at the Japanese Academy Awards. A national manhunt. 5,000 posters. 2 months. 3 prefectures. Stopped by a 10-year-old girl who remembered a name because it sounded like her classmates.